All right, so there we go. So the things I do want to point out though real quick, so if we could take a quick look up, I'm going to start a 2D sketch here. It's a little bit delayed, sorry. Okay. So the things that I do want to talk about, last class, did I mention arc? Have I gone over arc with you guys already? The 3 different types of arcs I talked about? So for this floor plan, what I would recommend you use is the center point arc. Okay, so when you get to the point where you're going to do like doorways, I would recommend the center point arc for this because I think it would be easier. Second, you can use for certain shapes, for different things, you can use the slot if that helps. You could also use a rectangle and you can round over the edges with this fillet command right here. You can also use the polygon feature if you wanted to make like a, say you wanted to make a really grand like dining room table that has like, is octagonal, and you want to make something that has 8 sides to it, you can choose the amount of sides with the polygon feature. For shapes that have edges that are angled, if you want to chamfer them over, chamfering does like what it does on your desk I showed you guys here, the edges of your desk. So depending on the shape you're looking for. You absolutely want to use these features over here. These will save you so much time. So I'm going to I already demonstrated mirror to you guys, right? I showed you with the mirror line. So I'm going to demonstrate circular or rectangle. I'll start with circular for now. So let's say I've got a shape. Let's say I've got a table, actually. Let's make it an easy one. So I've got a round table. And let's say at this table, I want to put some chairs. So I want to think about chairs as rectangles for now. God bless. God bless. Let me just, this is really not responding well. When I run this recording program, everything slows down. Sorry. Give me 1 second. There we go. Let's try this again. All right, so say that's one of my chairs, and I don't want to have to redraw this chair on all these spots. So I don't want to redraw this chair in every spot along the way, so I'm going to use the circular feature under pattern, which is in the middle. And to use this feature, again, like all of them, if you hover over it first, it'll give you a quick demonstration of how you're actually going to use it. So it duplicates certain geometry and arranges them in some sort of an arc or curved pattern. You could do it around a semicircle and have like, imagine you have like an outdoor bar area, non-alcoholic bar area, and you had like a semicircle as like the area you would swim up to, right? You could have different stools or different platforms at 4 spots instead of around the whole circle if you only have a portion of a circle, like an arc. So let's choose this circular feature here. Now, the first thing it asks me is, what geometry am I going to try to actually pattern? And the geometry I'm going to use here is this rectangle. Now, unfortunately, to click it, I'm going to want to click each of these separately. It's not allowing me to click the entire rectangle. Then after that, it says, I want to choose the axis that I want to work around here. So I want to be able to rotate. Oops. There we go. And I want to be able to move around this how many times? So say I wanted 8 chairs, I would choose 8. And it does the math for you. It angles everything out for you. It spaces everything for you. So if I put 10, now I've got 10 chairs. Now, is it going to work if I get too extreme, like 15 chairs? They're getting smaller is what you notice, right? Let's see, actually, if I do something like 20 chairs. Oh, they're actually overlapping eventually. So you're going to have some limitation based on your geometric constraint you started with. Okay, so if I wanted something like an octagon or 8 chairs, I hit OK. And now I've got all of these objects that are patterned around my circle. So that's a really good feature. This is the circular pattern. And then rectangular does the same thing. Rectangular allows you to use a grid line to space out your items. So let's say you were looking at like, let's say you were making an at-home movie theater and you wanted to put a bunch of different, like those recliner chairs set up. So let's just start with a rectangle here. I'm trying to think of the last time I used this feature. I want to think if there's anything else I need beforehand. Like usually you need for circular, you need something arced to actually make the circular pattern around. But with this one, I don't think you need anything. The mirror, you need a mirror line. Duplicate selected geometry and arranges it in rows and columns. Select the geometry to pattern, then specify the direction, the number of copies, and the distance between copies. Select edges or work features to specify a direction. Okay, so this should work without anything else needed. So let's take a look. So first I'm going to choose the geometry that I want to duplicate, which is all 4 of these sides of the rectangle. Now let's see, direction 1. Let me click on this first. I think I can choose it by pressing down. It should know that I'm going down now for direction 1. And that moved me left, let's see. And let's see what direction 2 looks like. Oh, that was left to right. And let's see direction 2. Let's see about the spacing if I make this into 3. Interesting. Oh, I know what happened here. Sorry, I apologize. Here's what I did. We got 1, 2, 3, 4. For the directionals, we're going to have to specify as 2 separate directions. So we click on this one first. Find direction to pattern. So let me see if I click down here if that actually does anything. No, but I want to choose below the item. I click down here. It's going left. Let's try this, see what happens, the difference. So it looks like if I click the top, it goes right. If I click the bottom, it goes left for this. And for the second direction, if I choose left, it goes up. Or if I click the right side of this, it looks like it's going to go down. So I can say that I want like a 5x2 grid, and there's 5x2 of that, and I can increase the spacing horizontally to say 2 inches instead, and then I can increase the spacing vertically to whatever I want, say it's like 3 inches vertically, it gaps there. So these dimensions here, this dimension is the spacing here, this is the vertical spacing, and then the 5 is the number of repetitions we have, or number of columns, and then the 2 was the number of rows. So it's a very useful feature. Just play around with it. You're going to notice that again, as you click on direction, the arrow key here, you'll see it'll allow you to specify either up or down or left or right for each of them. And then hitting OK will keep the pattern. And let's see, what's interesting. Can we alter this pattern? We probably can. So if I click on this one dimension, that's 2 here, and I edit it and make it 2.5, they should all change, and they do. So the dimension here is set as a function of the dimension here. So each of these gaps in between, although they're not showing a dimension, each of these dimensions between each of these is the same as this. So if I change this, it'll automatically change all of these values. Trim, people have been using trim at all? Trim will be very useful, especially with the floor plan. Trim allows you to cut pieces out, so any overlaps. So if we had, I don't think we have any overlap here, but like say we did, let's put a line down the middle here, a chord or a secant. So we have a secant line there. If I go to the trim feature now, what will happen is it'll allow me to trim off part that's separated by another line. So I can cut off that part of the line, I can cut off the inner part, I can cut off the minor arc or the major arc over here, or cut off this part of the line, but trim is very useful. Extend is very useful. It takes a line that's already there, or a curve, and extends it up to the next barrier or the next intersection. Let's see. And that's trim. That's what I was just showing there. Yep. So trim takes off little pieces of it along the way. Yep. What is split? Curve entities into 2 or more sections. So this splits it up into 2 pieces that allows it to be clickable in 2 separate ways. This can be very useful, split. If you need to take a shape and cut it into two parts, and each of those parts can be separately clicked, or separately adjusted, I should say, really. Rotate, copy, and move, obviously, do what they say they do, but just read how they work. For each of them, you have a base point, it looks like, for each of them. Yeah. The base point is important there for those. If any of you have had any time, or if you want to explore over here where I'm pointing to, These options are really useful. This is probably the most powerful part of all of Autodesk here, the constraints that exist. So you could have tangency, you could have one that does what's called a smooth curve to smooth it over. In this case, it looks like a symmetric constraint. Here we have some sort of equality constraint, making two things equal. Here we're going to have a horizontal or a vertical constraint and keep something vertical or horizontal always. Here we have parallel, perpendicular. So if two lines have to be perpendicular and you set those with that constraint, they will remain that way. Concentric allows for two things that are arced to have the same center. That's really useful. What else? Collinear, two lines that are along the same general line. And then, what is this? Constraints points to other geometries. Point can slide with the curve, can slide and lie anywhere along the curve, unless not the constraint dimension widths. Okay, so this is to keep the actual curve on a given point of another shape. So if you were to move it, it would, I can't move that mouse. If you were to move any part of it, the curve would move along the center of the circle here. And again, when any of these are not really clear, as you hover over the command, press F1, and open up a help window, which will take you to like a little tutorial on how to use that command feature. Any questions on CAD 2 or what your assignment is for CAD 2 right now? Is it clear? Any concerns?
Is there any like specific
No requirement needed. No, it's very open-ended for you. So CAD 1 was really follow along the guide, just to see you replicate tools. CAD 2 is I want you to use whatever features you can to use it. Now I'm going to open your CAD file when you submit it. So I'm going to be able to look over here, right, and see your features. And if I see that you like made 30 windows and didn't use the repeat feature, I'm probably going to be like, that's not the optimal way to do it. You follow what I'm saying? So do things in a way that look good, but also try to use all the tools or a lot of the features in the to-be sketched palette that's up top. There's also one called points, where you can set points and you can use that to specify distances and stuff. Okay, so point is very useful as well. Sorry. So when you move it, it's growing, huh?
yeah.
What did you select as the base point for this? Should work then. Okay, so you're going to move or you're going to copy?
I copied this one.
Got it.
Selected everything. I select base point. This is loose.
Yeah. So it must be referencing another point somewhere that's causing the shape to morph. I have a question for you. Can you hit X real quick? Yeah, like skateboarders get off the feature. Can you click the center of the circle and just move the whole thing? Oh, but then it gets white. It's so odd. Sorry. Which way
Because my base point I'm clicking right now.
Sorry, Lars, that's my fault. First one. Thanks, Lars. It's my fault. I should have said it.
The base point I'm clicking right now is also clicking this constraint. I can't do the constraint. Because the constraint is the radius, it's the dimension of the radius for the circles. So I said, so it's kind of the
But the 360 is an angle constraint.
Wait, it's also the diagonal. When I click that,
The diameter you said equal to the diameter. Are you turning the side?
I just didn't say why. Well, I see 2D. I think we made it 3D.
So that shouldn't be a problem. Do me a favor. Click the 360, right click it, and delete the constraint. Can you double click on the actual icon? It's a driven dimension, meaning it's driven by what you did in that feature.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move it. It's just something simple. And when you choose copy, and you made a copy of it, it allows you to move it and place it. What about right clicking on the center of the circle with center? That's the right shape. Okay, so show me again. Yeah, show me with copy. Selecting a region, and choosing the base one at the center. Okay. And there's no way you can specify where you want to copy to. Can you put the center points first as points and then move the copies exactly on that? It's just easy.
Oh, I can do
Instead of
that.
using the move feature, you
I
know?
mean, I was moving that one. That was just.
You know what I'm saying, though, right? So there's a point feature, so you can specify an exact location of those
Just like
points.
that, and then.
And then you move the base points there. I don't know, it's really, you would think it wouldn't, it shouldn't be a problem, you just copy something, right?
Curious how they would get rid of that, like dimension.
The driven dimension there. I'm wondering what it is too, because do I have it on my spots? Let me see.
That's what I was trying to see, but I don't.
Yeah, it is on mine. It says 360 there. Let me see. Let me see how this feature works if I did it.
You deselected the circle.
Yeah, I know. And I want to try move actually, right? Is what we're looking at? The one that was giving you the issue was move, not copy?
That's odd.
That's really weird.
It says something with my end, I guess.
It may be possible that when you made the first circle that you then copied, that first circle had like a reference point toward the origin or something else. That's the only thing I can think of right now.
I had circle center points. I don't think.
No, that wouldn't be a problem usually.